Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast. My name is Elizabeth Savion, so I have a special guest today that shares a very common interest of mine and a passion, which is about encouraging women and also creating a platform for other people to share their story. She is the host of Unmasked with Barbara. Today, she'll be sharing her story, what's led her to her passion, and just embracing her season that she's in today. So let's just get right into it. I'm so excited to have this conversation with her. I actually met her through social media. We actually haven't met in person, but just following what she's doing and kind of the voice that she has through social media. She has her own show, which is called Unmasked with Barbara. So I have Barbara here with me today. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation to be a guest on my podcast. So can you go into a little bit, for those of you guys that don't know her, like a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I basically am a host to a talk show that's called Unmasked with Barbara. It launched back in April, and right when the pandemic hit, all the episodes started streaming. So it was kind of like a little project that I started working on for myself while I had a full-time job. And so I just started working on that. And right when the pandemic hit, it basically kind of became my main focus. And right after that was done, I didn't really have any sense of, and I feel like everybody kind of went through this where they felt like, okay, what do I do? Where the world has stopped, what do I do? And so I am basically working now on a new set of interviews where I'm reaching out and interviewing women from all over the world and just trying to focus on issues that women are facing in different countries, issues that women and people in general don't hear about on a daily. And so just kind of bring that into awareness and maybe spark some sort of hope and, bring some sort of unity amongst women in different parts of the world. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. She's really about empowering women in different areas, but you've also gotten to meet so many people all over the world, which is part of your story, right? Because there's
Yeah.
something else for those that don't know. She was in pageants and does a little bit of everything. So if you can go a little bit into that, like how did that start? Like, were you always passionate about, modeling and pageants and all of that?
So my mom put me in modeling classes and in dance when I was 3 years old because she didn't know what to do with me. I was super hyperactive. I was always just trying to be in the spotlight and just absorbing every amount of energy that I possibly could, that she ended up at 3 putting me in dancing and modeling. And I was even in some show right when she had me. Somebody
No way.
hired to bring me on to be used as a baby for this one. I don't know I can't remember what it was, but it was like a show. And so right from when I was born, my mom always kind of put me in things like that, and I eventually just loved it. I was obsessed with it. My mom used to be a dancer. My dad was, I don't know if anybody is here that's listening Puerto Rican or Spanish, most likely.
Mhm.
But if you're Spanish or Puerto Rican, El Gran Combo. And so my dad was their sound engineer for years. And so my dad always traveled, and I was always in concerts and always around music. And so I was always dancing and trying to be on stage. And so kind of that's where my life started really taking off. And when I was in high school, up until high school, I was always in dance studios and just doing all sorts of things. But when I was 17 years old, I ended up in a relationship that basically paused all of that for me.
Really?
And
Why is that?
so, okay, this relationship was great and horrible all at the same time because I learned so much from him. I learned so much about being a potential wife. I was engaged to him. I met him when I was 17 years old, and we were engaged by 21. He was older. He was 25. He was 24 when I was 17 when we met. And so he was 7 years older than me. And so he taught me just so much on maturity, how to be a wife, how to be a potential mother. His parents, he was a youth pastor too. His parents were the pastors of the church. And so I learned how to grow up very quickly in that relationship. And the thing is that it was almost, although I do appreciate growing up the way that I did in that relationship, I feel like it was forced upon me to grow up the way that I did, because he wanted me to be something that I wasn't. And so he had this image of this potential wife that he wanted me to be. And so with every chance he could, he always tried to kind of shove that down my throat and tell me, you know, this is how you need to be, this is how you need to behave. And his parents, and not to, you know, bring a negative light to church at all. I go to church right now. And the thing is that with them, they were very old school. They had a very old school mentality. So they had an old school view of how women should be in relationships and how they should be as women. And so his dad was very controlling on his mother. And so they kind of tried to do the same with me. And because I've always been so just headstrong, we were constantly fighting because I was always fighting against that. But nonetheless, because I was in love, I just did it and just went along with it. And I remember, I will never forget this moment. We sat down in a restaurant one day and, you know, he just told me, that modeling that you do, that world that you like, it's a sin. You can't do that, because that's not godly. And it's not who I see myself being with in the future.
Wow.
And I remember I looked at him in the eyes with tears, just little tears that just streamed down. And I just smiled and I said, okay. And that was the end of that conversation. And from that day, I quit all types of runway shows, any type of photo shoots I had stopped all of it. I remember there was a fashion show that I had done, that it was like bathing suits and kind of like lingerie-esque, like Victoria's Secret style. And I remember he shamed me so much for that. And I was trying everything in the world to get them to take my pictures down, not because I was ashamed, but he made me feel ashamed for it. And he made me feel like, oh, I can't, you know, be a youth pastor and be seen with somebody that has pictures like that on the internet and has things like that on the internet. And I remember those times were just so stressful, because we were just trying to figure out how to get them down. I was bothering my mom about it, and my mom was just so confused as to like why I was making it such a big deal, but I wasn't really telling her what the conversations we were having either, because I know if I told her what he told me, she would just be heartbroken too and would probably tell me to leave him. So I basically kept a lot of things away from my mom.
Like, is that what led to the breakup?
So yes and no. We were together about 4 years. So he kind of told me that at the beginning, like early, like at least a year in, or at least a year into the relationship. And because we were already a year in, I was already comfortable. I was already used to this guy. You know, as soon as he told me that, I was like, you know what, that's fine. You know, I think marriage and having kids is like the only thing I see myself doing now, because I'm with you. And so I immediately, you know, kind of just distanced myself from that world and tried to figure out new things that I wanted to do. And I was just going around in circles, because his dad, you know, he was the lead pastor of the church. And sometimes he would even sit me down and suggest things that I should do career-wise that would benefit his son. And he would tell me, you know, maybe you should go be a teacher, because, you know, the great schedules, you get out early, you can pick up the kids, you can have the summers off. And literally, like, they would just sit there and try to plan out my life for me. And I would sit there and just take it, because I was in love with this guy and I was so used to the relationship already that I completely forgot, you know, what my passions were, what my dreams were. And because I was so young too, I feel like at such a young age, you're still trying to figure your life out. There's so much about you that you don't know. And those are the prime years that really prepare you for who you're going to become. And in a way, I feel like those years were just kind of like taken from me and enforced upon what I you know, what I should be doing and how it should be. And I don't want to say enforced, because I chose to be in the relationship. Nobody told me I had to be in that relationship. I chose to be there. But for love and for, you know, the idea of marriage, I sacrificed or almost killed my dreams.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you love you love the person so much that you're like, okay, what can I do to make my fairy tale happen? Like, if I have to cut this off, and I feel like it's very common in women. I'm not saying it's only women, but we kind of, because we care so much and like we really put our heart out there and like we really invest, we kind of feel like the investment to have to start all over, you're like, no, like I'm going to figure it out here. Like, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. But then at the end of the day, it's like you still have dreams too. Like they're pursuing their dreams, they're continuing their life. Like at the end of the day, you want someone that will bring your purpose and dreams to life too in the same way. It's like going towards each other. So you feel like that whole experience taught you like to kind of finding your own voice and self.
I mean, I remember right towards the end. I mean, we got engaged. It was a really big public engagement too, like right in front of the church. Everybody was there, like almost 400 people were there. I want to say a few months. It wasn't even a year after we were engaged that things just started really, really, really going left. We just fought because of the things that he wanted me to do and I didn't want to do, but ended up succumbing to. And after we got engaged, things just got really bad. And after that, I just started realizing it's almost like I started awakening myself from the sleep insomnia that I was in, because that's what I was just blinded by love and walking blindly. And as soon as things just started getting worse after the engagement, I realized, you know what, this may not be it. This may not be it. And I have to start understanding and realizing that it's okay, that it may not work out with him. And so once I started realizing that, I became more and more okay with being away from him. And before we even broke up, I was already ready to let go.
Mm.
And for good. We had always, talked about, oh, we're going to break up. And, you always say that when you're mad, and you always say things like that. But it was towards the end that I found peace within myself to completely let go. And it wasn't until I found that peace within myself that I let go. Even he even tried to come back to me. He even tried to, get back with me. And I was just so good. It almost, when we broke up, it almost felt like a huge like burden was lifted off of my shoulders, and I could breathe and I could live my own life. And it was almost like I was free and out of this prison that I was in. I went a month later. I did a pageant. That pageant led me to represent Puerto Rico at an international level. I traveled a lot. So many doors were opened in that time. And I was just living my best life, or what it seemed like living my best life.
Yeah, because you were traveling, you were finally doing what your heart's desire was, like to be on pageants and to do what you were made to do.
Yeah. And so I was just excited. With every door that opened, I was more excited. And with every door that opened, I was just like, yes, opportunities. Here we go. Let's do it. I don't know. I'm very easy with people. I'm great with the network. I'm great with, putting myself in a room and making sure that, I can fit in, and people want to bring me back for, a job or whatever the case may be. And so I always did that. I went into a place, I traveled into a city with the idea in mind that I wanted to make a connection that would lead me to another door from there. And that's what I was doing for a while, and it was working amazingly. I traveled to places like normal people basically dream of going and don't really go to. But yeah, I was just so happy that I was able to be finally traveling and doing what I wanted to do. And
Was it
um,
what you expected? Like the whole modeling pageant world, was it what you thought it would be like?
so yes and no. For a while, at the beginning, I was super excited. Obviously, everything was new, everything was exciting, and I was just like, unstoppable. But there came a point with pageants specifically, and in an industry where your beauty is constantly judged to meet somebody else's standards. There came a point where I felt yet again that I was in another prison. Like I went from one prison to another prison.
Mm.
And that prison was a prison of being compared to other, beautiful women, being compared to the social standard of beauty, and having to constantly meet that. And I was body shamed too. I had my pageant coach. She would always tell me, you're fat. You need to, you need to lose weight if you want to win. You have to, which, yes, with pageants and with any sport, really, there are diets that one should follow, and there are things that you have to sacrifice. But there's a difference between encouraging somebody to do sacrifices to reach a goal and versus body shaming that person or telling them they're not good enough or they're not going to do it as a way of manipulating them into getting what they want. So it was just all messed up. And so I felt like, once again, while I do love the pageant world, I do love everything that I learned about it. I believe that pageants, put women on a great platform. A lot of women go into pageants with the intentions of wanting to change and wanting to be of influence to other women. However, if you're not careful and if you're not set in yourself, set in your identity and secure in it, you could really, really, really be damaged, because there are so many influences, there are so many opinions, there are so many people that are talking to you. Because when you're a pageant girl and you represent, for example, a specific country, everybody from that country expects you to represent them to the highest degree. And so with that, obviously a lot of criticism is going to come, a lot of things are going to come your way. And so I thank God my family and my parents always gave me words of encouragement, gave me words of confidence. And so I always was very secure in myself, and I always knew deep down inside that, I am not what they're saying I am, and I don't need to go down this rabbit hole. But eventually it ended up affecting me. And, I ended up just going through every door that opened, not realizing that not every door that's open is meant for you to walk through. It kind of took me hitting myself a few times in the head for me to realize, okay, I've had enough. I think I'm going to go home and finish school and kind of refocus and reshape my life. Because from that relationship, I went from high school into a almost marriage into being exposed to everything the world had to offer. Mm-hmm. And so I was just very excited to try everything. And so there came a point where I wasn't happy, and I knew that the way that I was living my life wasn't going to benefit me in the long run. And it's not where I wanted to be eventually. And so I made the decision to stop all my travels, close all the doors that I had, close everything, and just go back home, be with my family, look at my life and see who I wanted to be, what I wanted out of it. For some reason, I always thought that I needed to be in a relationship. And so I had this image, and I think it's because my parents have modeled, my parents have been together for 27 years. They've modeled a marriage before me that has thrived and succeeded. In this generation, that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Very rare to come across marriages now that, haven't gone through a divorce or separation or something. So I've always had that before me. And so I always thought that's what I needed to do. And so when I came back home to kind of like restructure and like relook at my life, again, I'm trying to find another relationship to somehow make me feel like that's what will fulfill me or complete me in some way, shape, or form, or a relationship or marriage is what I need in order to really settle down. And I don't know why I was doing that, but I did. And so in that time, I ended up falling for this other guy. That guy ended up being worse than the first. Beyond measures. 2018 was probably the worst year of my life, the absolute worst year of my life. I was in this relationship with this guy who was a complete narcissist. I didn't know any of these things when I met him. I knew him for years, and we were friends before, so I thought I knew him, and I thought this is a guy that I wanted to be with. And because I've known him for so long, I thought, okay, like, there's a reason why we've known each other for this long. And I would kind of like make myself believe these stories I had in my head of like how we're meant to be, and this is the one, and try to force that relationship to happen. It wasn't even like a natural relationship. I feel like I had a lot of fault with bringing him into my life because I pursued him very heavily and always thought that would be the perfect guy for me, because I just looked at his life on the outside and what he did and what he projected he was to be and what he seemed to be. And so because of this image he had created for himself, I fell in love with that image.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to marry the image he created. And so when we were in the relationship, it's when his real self started coming out to life. And his real self was not the man I thought I was in a relationship with. And to tell you even more, because he was such a narcissist and just so obsessed with himself and just putting me down, because anytime I did anything that was considered good or an accomplishment, or, you know, I got the spotlight in something, he always tried to like dim that light and always make me feel like, oh, that was nothing. Oh, that's that little something that you did. And like try to make me feel like what I'm doing is nothing. And so he tried to keep me in this box. It was a box where I was just so confused because I had been in a relationship before where I was restrained. But this was different because I no longer was being restrained by somebody else. I was restraining myself into this relationship because I knew better. I learned from my previous relationship. I knew all the signs. But for some reason, I was forcing myself to stay in a relationship to fix it, or to try and make it better, and make it work in the way that I wanted it to. And so being in that relationship, I literally lost myself in the worst way possible. We had fights where I thought I was going to get a stroke. Like, that's how bad the fights were. Like, I would just drive my car, drive it and just start speeding like as if I wanted to crash myself. That's how bad the fights were. And it was because I didn't understand why the relationship was going the way that it was, because I thought this was one guy.
But it was just at the end of the day, you realized that
It ended up being something else. And I was just so confused and so mad at myself for getting to the place that I was, because I know that I've been through something like that before. And I know everything that I've been through, with everything that I've learned. Why am I here again? Why am I here again and worse? Because that's what it was. It was back in some sort of jail or some sort of confinement, but worse, because I didn't know what was going on. And what I didn't realize, and I started realizing this towards the end, was that this guy he wasn't mentally stable. And I don't think he knew that. And sometimes when you're in relationships with people like that, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. And because he didn't really know who he was, he couldn't tell me. He only knew the image he projected of himself. And the false idea of who he was is the only thing he knew. And so me trying to understand that and trying to understand what the struggle is, what the battle is, it was hard. And I was losing myself in the whole time, because I had friends that told me, this guy isn't good for you. My mom told me, people told me, this guy isn't good for you. This relationship isn't good for you. But for some reason, I ignored it, thinking this was from God. And God, you know, this is a relationship he had for me. And I'm supposed to be married, and I'm supposed to be settled down. And, you know, I'm going to be, 25 now. This is what I should be doing. And so I kept on putting myself on this box when I felt God was trying to take me away from that. And so I feel like coming out of a prison that somebody else in the past put me in, I went into another relationship where I put myself in the prison. So it was just crazy.
So do you feel like what led you to put yourself in that cage, that jail that you were in, was because you were kind of figure yourself out or be loved?
Yeah, I think the reason why I let myself be in that relationship or predicament was because I had this false image of, I created this image for myself, I should say, that in order to be happy and in order to be fulfilled as a woman, I needed to be in a relationship or be in some sort of marriage and, and find my happiness in another guy. And I kept on, even though I kind of have an idea and sense of still who I want to be, at the same time, I was trying to find my fulfillment and my happiness and joy in being in a relationship with another guy. And I think towards the end, things just started getting so just absolutely ridiculous that I realized there was a turning point. There was something that made something happen in our relationship that made the switch for me. And in that moment, I realized that I can no longer keep doing this to myself. I cannot keep putting myself in relationships to seek some sort of fulfillment or happiness. I have to figure out how to do this on my own, because no man is ever going to provide that for me. Nobody's ever going to provide that for you. You can only make yourself happy. Once you create a life for yourself that you love, and you're in the space where you're just so happy with yourself, you cannot allow somebody else to come into that same space and destroy that. The person that is supposed to be in your life or is supposed to come into your space. It's supposed to give you some sort of peace. It's supposed to elevate you. It's supposed to encourage you. It's supposed to love you and just share hope with you and be honest. No relationship should ever feel like what that felt, ever. And so I think once I realized that this does not feel good, this does not feel like this is going to work, I don't think this is what I need to be doing. I'm not well. I don't feel healthy. I don't feel like myself anymore. I think I've lost myself. And once I realized that I lost myself in the relationship is when I think woke up, literally. Because the whole time I was trying to fix it, and the whole time I was trying to make it work, and the whole time I was, just focused on him. Towards the end is when I literally turned the tables and looked at myself in the mirror and said, you're not who I want to be. And who you've become is not who I want to be. And it was in that moment that I realized I hate everything that I've become with this guy, that I realized I can't do this anymore. And after that relationship, I literally just started venturing out and trying to figure out what it is that I'm supposed to be doing with my life, because I have all these passions. I have all these things. I've traveled the world. I've done so much. What is it that I'm supposed to be actually doing? And so I took time to myself to just really dedicate and kind of figure that part out. It took a while. Just so many things that about me that I still wanted to venture out. And I've always been kind of like a free spirit. So I've always kind of wanted to just be free and do whatever and not be restrained to anything. And that was always my mentality. And I always ended up biting myself in the foot. So it's been a process, but it's been a process of just awakening to who I want to be, falling in love with myself, being okay, being on my own. And it took a while for me to realize, or I should say, it took a while for me to go from a place where I'm just okay with being by myself to actually being in a place where I'm wonderful. I'm fantastic doing on my own. I don't need anybody right now. And if somebody decides to come my way, he better be ready to measure up and level up to who I need him to be and who he needs to be. But other than that, I really do not welcome any type of relationship now in my life that doesn't benefit me in any way, shape, or form. And with experiences and with traumas and with past experience, you learn what those red flags are. So I immediately, if a guy tries to talk to me or, I'm seeing somebody, I immediately see the flags and cut it loose. I don't even give it an inch. I don't give it an ounce of my emotion. I don't give it anything. I've learned to, once you're getting to know somebody, that's what you're doing. You're just getting to know them. But the thing with women is that we tend to literally see a guy and we already are planning our wedding on Pinterest in our mind.
Yes. So hooked. Like, this is the one, he has this, this, and this, even though he doesn't have the 10 other things, but we see those 1, 2, 3 things.
Because we check off, okay, he has a great career, he has this, he has that. Those are the things we check off, and that's it. We're just we're checking off things about him. We're not checking off lists of things about us that we need in a guy. So when you're looking at a guy for a potential relationship or anything, you have to check off a list of things that are actually going to benefit you and are going to grow you and are going to help you and are going to push you. Not just his career, not just his whatever, because you know what? I can make my own money. The career part, that's just a given. You better match what I'm doing, because I'm not pulling the weight here. Like the whole, oh, girls get all caught up of, oh, he's well off on his own, he has a career. I'm like, okay, and that's supposed to be like shocking? That's what you're supposed to have.
Yeah, that's not being an extraordinary man.
That's not, and that doesn't make a man extraordinary just because they have a good career or a good, because he wants a family. And I think a lot of women tend to do that. Oh, he has a good career, he wants a family, he's a family guy. Girl, so many guys are family guys. Like,
yeah, I think it's more like character. I think that's the thing that we lack in looking as of character.
And a lot of times we'll look at those things that are non-negotiables as things that are like perks. So things like respect, things like a man that has goals, has his head on his shoulders, loves his family. Those should all just be non-negotiables. Those aren't perks. That doesn't make him cool. That doesn't make him the one. That comes with the territory. That should come with the territory and what you deserve as a woman. Now, the perks in a relationship, those are the perks that you should look for, are the things that are just going to elevate and add just like a little, more to who you are and what you're doing in your life. And, if you're doing a podcast, like yourself, what is he going to add to that? How is he going to elevate you? How is he going to encourage you? Is he going to, support you when you feel down? Is he going to make you feel, like you're worthy in the times that you don't feel worthy? It's just all these little things that I feel like we don't take into consideration. And the reason we don't take those things into consideration is because we haven't figured out who we really want to be yet. And so because we don't know who we want to be, we don't think about these things. We think about the no-brainer things. Oh, he respects me. Oh, he opens the door for me. Oh, he takes me out to dinner and pays. Okay, those are no-brainer things. Like, those are just things that come with the territory. You should focus on, when you look at a guy, yes, he has to have all these qualifications, but make sure that that guy elevates you as a woman and elevates you into becoming your best self. And don't rely on him elevating you either. He has to come and just add, but you not needing it. You should never need anything from a guy. If he wants to add, if he wants to flower that, if he wants to grow that, then amazing. Then you've got an amazing man by your side. But before any type of relationship, I've realized that you should be 1000% completely fulfilled with yourself before you can even share a life with another person. Because once you share a life with another person, you have to compromise everything you're doing. And so, are you compromising things that matter to you, things that you want to achieve in life, but all of a sudden, because he has a different career path, what you're doing may not work out because of his career. So it's just little things that you just have to look at in order to determine if this guy is going to elevate the highest version of myself. And me being at my highest, what can he bring to the table? And so it's been a process of just kind of me realizing that, and just, doing my show. And once I launched the talk show, it's just it actually launched it this year, like I said earlier. This year 2020 has been a roller coaster, but it's been beautiful, because I feel like I've been able to just take time to myself, to just meditate on what I'm supposed to be doing, on where God wants me to go with this, show. I have such a heart for helping women. I have such a heart for, just bringing justice on things that people don't really care about, or people tend to overlook because it doesn't directly affect them. And so I want to see where that takes me. And so this year I've kind of just been tapping into that, and just so happy with my mental health, and just so content with where I am, because for the first time ever, I feel like I don't need a man in order to complete who I am. Matter of fact, I almost feel like having a man might interrupt what I'm doing.
Yeah, but that's such a good place to be, because I feel like it's so easy to fall on the other side where you feel like your life is going to be completed once that happens, like once you have that man in your life. And so now it's like you actually have that like standard, and you're like, okay, like, do you check off this? It's not if I'm worthy for you, it's like, are you worthy for me? Like, are you
Exactly.
making this list, because I feel like a lot of women, I have found myself in past relationships too, seeing like, man, like, why don't I just fit his idea? But it's like, I've never thought, well, so what does he add to your life is so important to look into. So what would you have told yourself now, being where in the space where you're in, where you're, you're pursuing your dreams, you're really taking this time to dedicate on yourself, on your just finding you and kind of like reaching your full purpose and potential. When you were in those darkest moments, like, what would you wish you would have told yourself, or someone maybe going through that season?
That if anybody is listening to this and is in a similar situation, I would definitely tell them to try and really tap into who you are, who you want to be, tap into your goals, into your dreams, really lay out your life, and what's going to fulfill you as a woman outside of a man. And I feel like once you have that uh, idea set in your mind and you're in progress and you're working on it, and it's something that is becoming achievable for you and it's tangible and you see things starting to turn around and work out in your favor, once you start noticing those things, you'll be so happy and just in love with where you are, that you won't try to mold some other guy's life. You won't try to fit in with some other guy in a relationship. You're not going to try and confine yourself into a relationship, because you're doing so great and you're doing so well on your own, and you're so in love with yourself, that if another guy isn't adding more to that and adding more value and adding more love, it's not going to be fulfilling. And so before a relationship, my advice to anybody is to just figure out who you are first. Figure out who you are, figure out where you want to go, fall in love with yourself, and then decide how you want to approach a relationship in life. I used to want to be married and want to have kids immediately, and that's all I wanted to do. I love kids, so that's what, I thought I wanted to do for so long. And I've been in this space where I'm just thriving on my own and just doing so much. And yes, I may not be nowhere near where I want to be. I'm literally just putting my feet in the water. I'm not even in the water just yet, like fully diving in. Nope. There's so much that I want to do. But just by starting off, I can already tell I'm okay with holding off on kids. I'm okay with holding off on, you know, marriage or relationships. I don't think that's what suits me in my season right now, because in the season that I'm in, I need my full focus on what I'm growing right now. And when you're in a relationship, when you're in anything with anybody else, your attention is divided. And as a woman, we tend to give too much attention to the guy. Mm-hmm. And we lose that attention, that quality attention that could be, to grow us and to grow our goals and to grow whatever we're manifesting. We're dividing it to somebody else that isn't even appreciating it. So you have to really just be in a place where you're just so focused on yourself. And it takes a while. It's not easy. It's not easy to get to this place at all. You have to wake yourself to the reality of no one is gonna make me happy but me. No one is gonna achieve the things that I want to achieve but me. No man is gonna do that. No career is gonna do that. No job. Nobody's gonna do that but me. So I have to decide the type of life that I want to create for myself, and the things that are going to be added on, how are they going to match up? How are they going to level up? How are they going to be able to add to this? Not take away, not make me feel like I'm going back to some prison, not make me feel like I'm putting myself in a prison, but how can we level up together if it comes down to that point? But in the meantime, girl, do you.
Do you, boo-boo.
Do you.
No, I love that. And I love how you've gotten to that place where a lot of women struggle to get to, but you had to go through that. All of those heartbreaks and those times, you had to go through that to get to this.
Yeah, and my encouragement is to anybody that feels like they can't get out of a relationship, or they're, finding themselves stuck going back into relationships and going back in circles, not really knowing what to do with their lives. If you're constantly doing that, it's because you need to figure out who you want to be for you. Because if you don't figure that out, you will end up in a wrong relationship, and you will end up married to somebody that you should not have been married to, because you try to force that upon yourself without realizing and accepting what you needed, who you needed to become first. And you see divorce rates are going up. They're going off the roof, more recent times than ever, because people are just putting themselves in relationships and going through marriages thinking that's what defines success, and realizing that that's not it at all. Marriage is hard, relationships are hard, but it shouldn't be traumatic if you're with the right person. It should be the right kind of challenging. Like, it should challenge you to be a better person. It shouldn't challenge, your character and who you are as a person. It shouldn't break you down. And the only way you'll learn that, and the only way you'll realize that, is if you completely just fall in love with yourself first and embrace yourself and become completely 1000% okay being on your own.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I don't know if you've shared it before. At the end of the day, I feel like you're going to help so many women that are going through that or have experienced that it's like you're so strong and bold and empowering. Like, and even when I've seen you talk to other people, like, you're so sure of yourself. And I know that comes from you taking the time to take this time to really focus on you. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been an honor. Yes, I have not told my testimony like that before, my story at all. People know bits and pieces of it, but I've never really explained it in a full picture, especially not now and where I am now, because where I am now is still very new, and I'm still getting used to this new me where I'm like, doing well by myself. But
yes, yeah. Honestly, if you guys aren't following her, where can they find you?
So my Instagram is Barbara, Barbara, Marrero, Marrero _, and my talk show is called Unmasked with Barbara. So it's Unmasked at Unmasked with Barbara, and that's it. And then my website, unmaskedwithbarbara.com. So I'm everywhere. My YouTube as well.
Thank you so much for tuning in on today's episode. I really hope you got something out of it. And make sure to tune in to Barbara's own show where she talks to amazing women about different topics. And if you aren't following me on social media throughout the week, I know that people sometimes find me randomly on this podcast or on YouTube. And so if you want to stay up to date with me, you can follow me at Elizabeth Sabi on Instagram and Facebook. And make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Tune in for next week's episode, and I hope you guys all have a great week.